Alrighty guys, so UFC Fight Night London just ended, and I'm not gonna hold you, this card was kinda ass. There were a lot of boring performances on this card from a lot of fighters that I'm even surprised are in the UFC anymore, and the only reason I didn't shut down my TV completely was because of Mason Jones and Axel Sola putting on a performance of a fucking lifetime. But no matter what you thought of this card, I think we can all collectively agree that MVP versus Sam Patterson was not only the worst fight on the card, but is probably one of the worst fights to go down in modern UFC history. Now I know that this video may get me crucified because there are a lot of people out there that love MVP, and while I don't necessarily hate the guy, I don't really think his performances are all that much to gawk at. And if Dana White came out and said that MVP has been removed from the UFC roster, I wouldn't really blame the guy. I think it's time for this man to move on to some greener pastures. But before I talk about MVP, I want to go ahead and talk about the main event. I'm not gonna hold you guys, I don't think that Movsar Evloev should have won this fight. At the very least, I thought that this fight would have been a draw, and honestly, I don't know what the hell Evloev's game plan was going into this fight. The guy didn't even shoot a takedown until the third round. I had Murphy winning the first 3 rounds. Obviously, the 4th round was a tie because Evloev decided to kick Murphy in the nuts for a second time and he got a point deducted, and I thought the 5th round went to Evloev. Now, this may be a coincidence, but this was also very similar to the scorecard I did for Dominic Reyes versus John Jones, so I don't know. This is a little suspicious if you ask me. I honestly do believe that Lerone Murphy was outstriking Evloev, and even when Evloev was grappling him and taking him down, he was easily able to get back up. And if I'm Alexander Volkanovski, I'm looking at these two and saying I would beat these guys to a pulp. And honestly, after watching this fight, I'm not really going to be all that upset if Jean Silva gets the next title shot. The guy's entertaining, he's dangerous, and he, I don't know, finishes his fucking fights. Alrighty, I'm done talking about that fight. Let's go ahead and talk about Sam Patterson versus MVP. What do you want me to say? This fight was shit. I mean this wholeheartedly when I say I would rather watch DDP versus Chimaev on loop for 15 hours while sandpaper rubbed against my nutsack than ever watch that fight again. There was literally no action in this whole fight. Literally no punches were being tossed out, and if they were, they either missed completely or they did literally 0 damage. I don't think that MVP is a terrible fighter, but I also don't think that he's elite. The really only notable performance that I can name off the top of my head that he's had was against Jared Cannonier, where he completely wiped the floor with him. And you take a look at his other opponents like Kevin Holland, who really doesn't have any heart nowadays, Ian Machado Gary, who he lost to, and Sharabullah Magomedov, who, even though he is a good fighter, he is a can crusher to the highest extent. And when asked about his performance, this is the response that he had to give.
Yeah, it's difficult when someone's not trying to engage and they're moving around a lot. It was just very difficult. I'm frustrated more. He's going to have a game plan. I was frustrated more with myself not figuring out a way while he was doing that as a game plan to still make it work for myself. I think because of his constant movement, I was kind of second guessing myself on what I should be throwing, shouldn't be throwing. And I guess his familiarity, he kind of knew what would be dangerous for him, which seems to be a lot of places, so he's kind of moving around a lot. So
I love how MVP is making it seem like Sam Patterson was teleporting around the octagon, meanwhile the whole time he was literally just walking in circles. I'm really getting sick of this mentality that fighters have where if their opponents aren't putting on the pressure, then they don't feel the need to capitalize on it and they'll just do the same thing as them. It's like, dude, hit the guy already. And I'm just gonna be real here, were we really expecting a masterclass from MVP, the same guy that was literally hitting Fortnite emotes on Uber Eats drivers in Bellator? Did we really think that this guy was going to live up to be the reincarnation of Anderson Silva and be able to take on all these top guys? Because after this fight, I don't even think you'll be able to take on my local Waffle House employee.
You're not deaf. You heard the crowd. Obviously, they were booing from that first round. How does that affect you within the fight?
no, it doesn't. Like, again, I'm very present. I know what's going on. There's not enough engagement here. If I'm frustrated in myself, then they boo. It just reinforces what's going on in front of me. And it doesn't change anything. It didn't make me want to be too reckless, but it did kind of encourage me to try and figure something out.
Then why didn't you do anything? Is this guy seriously going to stand here with a straight face and tell us that getting booed by his own home city on national television isn't going to have an effect on him in this fight? Now, I'm not an MMA fighter, so I really can't get into the full mindset of a fighter, so who knows, maybe he really didn't give a shit. But if I were him, I'd be at the very least a little pissed off that the people from my own home city are booing me in front of millions of other people on national television. Now, I think any logical person would look at this fight and say that MVP needs to retire, or at the very least get one more fight in against some unranked welterweight or middleweight and then kick the bucket on his UFC career, but apparently MVP doesn't think so.
I've called out your Colbys, your Usmans, your Pratas, even during the last fight with Pratas and Leon, I tweeted to say, yo, I'll take the winner of this one, and then when he won, I messaged the next day, Hunter, yo, can I get that fight? I am actively trying to get big fights.
Big fights, my ass. Do you really think that after that performance you had against Sam Patterson, you're worthy of a Colby Covington, a Leon Edwards, or a fucking Carlos Prates? I'm honestly kind of shocked that this guy hasn't been given much Dana White privilege, because he's arguably one of the most marketable fighters on the middleweight roster. His highlight wins over people in Bellator have easily millions of views, and with the right tools, this guy could easily get an opportunity against these guys he's apparently been asking to fight for a while. Now, of course, this is not me saying he deserves this fight, because he does not deserve any of these opportunities against these fighters that he's mentioning. Do you really think that wins over Shara Bullet Magomedov, Kevin Holland, and Sam Patterson are worthy enough to get you into a fight against the top level welterweights? I'm honestly glad that the UFC didn't give this guy these fights, because if he got them, he wouldn't be alive to tell the tale. And I really don't think that there's anything else left for MVP. I mean, the guy's 38 years old and he's yet to have a big standout performance in the UFC, and not to mention he already has a pretty decent sized rivalry with the company, so I really just think that he should retire at this point. As much as people want to convince me, I don't think MVP in the big 2026 is going to have this ultra crazy performance that everybody is going to be talking about for the next 10 years. I truly do believe that if this guy didn't have the performances that he did in Bellator and he was just some guy on the regional scene, he would have been cut a long time ago. I think he's kind of in that limbo zone where he's not necessarily UFC worthy, but he's also way too good for the regionals. I mean, the guy has a 17-2 record in Bellator and a 4-1 record in the UFC, and one of those wins being against fucking Sam Patterson in a boring ass decision. If MVP really does want to continue pursuing mixed martial arts, I think he should leave the UFC. I think he should go back to Bellator, fight a few more Home Depot employees, get some highlight knockouts, get some millions of views off of it, and then ride off into the sunset. Because first of all, Bellator splits more revenue amongst their fighters than the UFC, but MVP also got his rise in Bellator. It was his peak, and if he chose to go back, he could have some success. But honestly, that's my take on MVP in the big 2026. What's your guys' opinions on the guy? Do you think that he should stay around the UFC for a little bit longer, or do you think it's time for bro to hang up the gloves? But anyways, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, my name is Insomnia MMA. Hope you guys are having a good day or night, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.